It's 5:30. It's 5:35. Yeah.
All right. There we go. That's much more powerful. Good evening. Happy New Year. We're going to go ahead and call the first meeting of the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority to order here today. Welcome to multiple new members. Actually, I guess one technically new member officially, and others who were new in December. So, welcome. Hope everyone is feeling recharged, rested, and somewhat fed. Please feel free to get up and get that. There are still more hard copy packets in the back if you need them. We'll go ahead and move to item number 2 on the agenda today, the approval of the October 29th, 2025 LURA minutes. Were there any edits or adjustments requested for the October 29th LURA minutes? In a resounding chorus of no, are there any?
So moved.
I hear a motion to approve a very eager motion to approve the minutes from October 29th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any objections?
Not an objection. I will just be abstaining from the vote because I was not here at the meeting, nor have I seen it, so I cannot comment on the accuracy.
No problem. Thank you. Cool. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, so approved. Next, we'll move to the review of the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority bylaws. Those are typically reviewed annually. Are there any amendments or revisions requested? I have 2, but I want to see if others have anything to add.
So, just some minor grammatical errors.
Yep.
Let's see, under Article 1, under the authority, Section 2, members, there's, right in the middle of that paragraph, there's a couple of
that extra commas?
Yeah, we need one of those. removed.
Okay, thank you.
And then commissioner, we can just have that capitalized throughout.
Inconsistent capitals?
Yeah.
Okay. Inconsistent capital C for those taking notes for the word commissioner throughout. Thank you.
Just had a question about Article 2 under officers. Section 1. Do we need the language that precedes the first sentence, the mayor and mayor, where it states that, February 25, 2025?
Oh, the kind of inaugural language?
Yeah, would it make sense to remove that and just say the officers of the authority shall be a chairperson and a vice chairperson, and the board shall elect a chairperson?
Yes, so that's Article 2, Section 1, officers. You're saying strike sentence 2 and the first clause of sentence 3.
Correct.
Right, so it starts with the board. That's what you're proposing, correct?
Yes.
Everyone following what Commissioner
Say that again.
Should it just say
So,
till
cutting
February
all
of
that.
next year?
Okay. Is there a reason why that language was in there to begin with?
Yeah, good question.
Because I don't want to undo, if there's...
I think that was just holdover for the creation of the Urban Renewal Authority. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Or that was from the inaugural bylaws. These are the first. This is only the first version, and these were.
Okay.
We needed to get that in that because it was our first. It was the creation of the bylaws.
Okay.
And then just another minor.
Sorry, just before you move on. So just to clarify, make sure everyone's on the same page there, that's Article 2, Section 1. This is page 2 of the bylaws under officers. Vice Chair McGilvray was proposing striking sentence 2, which reads, the mayor and mayor pro tem of the city of Longmont shall serve in the capacity of chair and vice chair of the LURA board respectively until the February 25th, 2025 meeting. And then you were also proposing striking the first clause of sentence 3 at the February 25th, 2025 meeting and subsequent years thereafter. You're saying strike that and then just start the sentence at correct? Correct. Any questions about that before Vice Chair McGilvray continues?
Now that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Would we change that to the first meeting of the new year? Because, see, we're early for it.
Yeah, that was one of the suggestions I was going to have, so we can get some of the language there. Good. Yeah. Go for it.
It's an Article 4, conflict of interest.
page 4 to 5.
Yeah, so there is a sentence that refers to property, but it's missing the T.
It's a D.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Properly or
That's
something.
line
Oh.
3 on page 5, if you're following.
Properly.
Yeah.
So can you just add T?
The city attorney. I talked to the city attorney about that too earlier.
Yeah.
So great, good
I
catches
thought I was
there.
having like a dyslexic moment or something.
I read it 3 times. And then, thank you. Any others from you?
No.
Okay, so we'll introduce those as a package right now. Commissioner Chris, you had flagged the last sentence of Article 2, Section 1 as well, right? And I think, Commissioner Chris, would you be willing to accept just changing that to beginning the first meeting of each calendar year?
I think that's wise, because that's where we are now, and we want to be going forward. Otherwise, we have to wait till February.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Yeah, so
I said the way
so-
it's written, we have to wait till February to elect officers, but now we should just do the first meeting.
Yes.
Laura, this is the same text that I flagged in my
Yes.
email too. So the last sentence now, well, okay, so just Article 2, Section 1 will now read, based on all of the different proposed amendments. The officers of the authority shall be a chairperson and a vice chairperson. The board shall elect a chairperson and vice chairperson from its membership, and the chairperson and vice chairperson shall serve 1-year terms beginning the first meeting of each calendar year. Great. Any other amendments, revisions, or questions of curiosity around bylaws?
Actually have a
Commissioner Chris?
question of curiosity.
Yes.
Can, after that year term, can they reserve?
Sorry?
Can they serve again? Can
Yes,
they be
it's
elected
just
again?
an annual board chair.
Election.
Yeah, annual
Okay.
election. Indeed. Commissioner Marson?
In the similar spirit to the changes to Article 2, Section 1, I would think it would make sense to remove the last sentence of Article 2, Section 2. The city council and mayor of the city have designated the mayor of Longmont as
Oh.
the initial
Yeah.
chairperson. Just strike that sentence.
Good catch. Thank you, Commissioner Marsing. Everyone follow that proposed change? Great. And then, do we need that for Article 2, Section 3? Okay. Any other questions, discussion, or amendments on? Yes.
Just as a point of interest, should we keep the city council and mayor of the city designated the mayor of Longmont as the initial chairperson for historic reasons? Or does it matter? Because we're eliminating it in Section 1.
I have a strong opinion on that.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out. No, don't.
We're good.
Yeah.
There's no change either way to our operations. It's just okay. So, I guess I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the bylaws with this package of amendments that have been offered from Commissioner Chris, Commissioner Marsing, Commissioner McGilvray, and Commissioner Parker as well. I believe you had that. No,
It's okay.
giving you credit there.
Thank you.
I know that, oh, sorry. I know that Commissioner Lokeman had specific questions she wanted to edit as well. And she is not here.
Do you have that information by any chance?
She did not send it, no. Well, I can bring back at a later date the fully edited document, and
Okay.
we can approve it then.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, Commissioner.
Is there a reason why we didn't introduce ourselves in the beginning and record who is present to start the
We did
meeting?
not take
roll
attendance.
call.
You're correct.
Take roll
We didn't
call,
actually do
yes.
roll call because I didn't have it on here.
It just says meeting called to order and then
I
it
just
goes into minutes.
called it. Well, thank you. So you know what? That's a great point. Thank you. Before we actually take a vote
Vote in
on
action. Yeah.
Yeah, before we take a vote on the bylaws, we'll go around. Thank you very much for catching that. I will make sure to add that right here as well.
Maybe you add that in the bylaws.
Yeah.
At the number 1, the header.
No.
Don't forget to.
Thank you very much.
Take it.
So why don't you do the honors and start us off?
Commissioner Prieto, or yeah,
Yeah.
present. I don't know. What they might-
That way or this.
We'll come around this way.
I'm not seated yet, so but I'm Alex Kalkoffer.
Commissioner Diane Christ.
Commissioner Boyd.
Commissioner Marsing?
Commissioner Hidalgo Faring,
Commissioner Popkin.
Commissioner McGilvray.
Commissioner Parker.
Harold Dominguez, City Manager.
Katie Baltes, Revitalization Manager.
Laura Moody, Executive Director.
Jen Newton, Assistant City Manager.
Teresa Malloy, Chief Financial Officer.
Craig Pennell, Planning Development Services Director.
Lindsay Dyson, Communications Director. Sandy Cedar, City Manager's Office.
Eugene May, General Counsel.
And that's over. Yeah. Great. Thank you for that reminder. Appreciate that. Great. Now we'll come back to item 3, review of the LURA bylaws. We had a motion on the table to approve with the package of amendments proposed. Both substantive and non-substantive. Second from Commissioner Christ. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We will now move on to agenda item 4, a motion to approve the agenda posting location. Was there any discussion or are there any questions about the agenda posting location for the Urban Renewal Authority meetings?
Just a question really for staff, and it's more general about agenda postings as I come into the role across the city. How long has it been the practice to make the online the primary posting location rather than a physical posting location? Just out of curiosity. A long time.
I feel like that state law changed, maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was possible. Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Seeing none, do I have any motions on this item?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Vice Chair McGilvray, seconded by Commissioner Prieto, to approve the agenda posting location as written. Any discussion? Further discussion? No. Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So approved. We will then move on to the election of the board chairperson and vice chairperson. Don't let this name tag fool you. We are having open and fair elections if you would like. Not know we were going to have these tonight.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Popkin or Chairman Popkin to continue.
I have a question.
Yeah. Yes.
Is anybody interested in, can we know who's interested in the positions before
Absolutely.
we motion to approve?
No,
Anybody?
I'm not motioning to approve.
Or not
Motion to
approve, but
nominate.
to nominate.
Great.
So is anybody interested in being chair or vice chair? Other than the chair and vice chair, and assuming that vice chair and chair want to be.
I am interested and would welcome the nomination if that were to go through. We are on chair for now. We'll get to vice chair second.
Anybody else interested in being chair? No? Okay.
Well, we have a motion. Was it technically a motion to nominate? Or
It was a,
just a friendly
Recommendation.
nomination?
By
No, this is-
acclamation?
yeah, if you don't have any
I mean, do we
competition.
have to second it? It's all seconded. So now we
Okay, you can- so
go
we have
on to discussion and.
motion to nominate, a second. Is there any discussion?
Do you want to tell us why you want to be chair? Just wait.
I would be happy to.
What
Thank you for
qualifies you?
asking.
What qualifies you
I'm
to
just
be
saying, you
chair?
don't have to.
Okay. Serious or not? Because I'm happy to if you want.
If you want to share a couple sentences as chair. Yeah, sure.
Very, very briefly. I said this back in February as well, but I think that the Urban Renewal Authority has a lot of opportunity to really support many of the city's goals and the community's goals. I have been interested in this work professionally and personally, given a lot of the opportunities throughout the city, and I've hopefully demonstrated over the past year that we try to run as efficient meetings as possible, recognizing that some of the discussions do take some time and run into some interesting challenges. I hope to continue to respect that and add more layers to what the Urban Renewal Authority does, as we will hopefully see today and enjoy today, and then subsequently in the next 6 months, we'll have multiple kind of topical discussions that aren't specifically just project related, and I think that'll help us take the Urban Renewal Authority into both a proactive and reactive role. Inherently, the responsibilities kind of fall into both buckets.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're next for the elevator speech.
Well, we need
sorry.
to upload my 17 slides so I can give you all.
We'll take each nomination individually in case there's ferocious chorus of challenge for each one. So there was a motion, a second. Do you have a question?
I'm just voting for you because you already got your own gavel. You brought your own gavel.
I was singing along the same lines. Who else has a gavel?
Yeah.
Well, good. There's a motion to nominate me to continue serving as chair. A second from Commissioner Gagel-Faring. All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I vote for myself in this context?
Yes.
I will.
Sure.
Okay. All those opposed? Okay. Seeing none, I will continue to serve. I will now flip my name tag up. Thank you. We'll now move on to the election of a vice chairperson. Commissioner McGilvray was previously serving in that role. Are there any questions, discussion, or nomination?
I nominate Commissioner McGilvray to continue as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chris has nominated Commissioner McGilvray, and Commissioner Prieto has seconded that motion. Is there any discussion?
No, but we'll welcome any comments if you have any.
Yeah, I think I just want to remind LURA that I'm not here representing the DDA. I do chair the DDA Board of Directors, and I'm on the board of the Longmont Economic Development Partnership representing Front Range Community College, but I'm representing at large, so the mayor gets to nominate a representative from the community to serve on as a commissioner, and so I think that's really cool to have the at-large representative as the vice chair, and a non-city council member. I think is a good thing as well. So, but I'm also open to anyone else who wants to serve in this capacity. I care deeply about this work. I've been working with Urban Renewal through the DDA for 10 plus years on that board, and we've done a lot of great things. So I think I could add value in this space.
Thank you, Commissioner McGilvray. Other questions or discussion?
I have a question, but I don't know if I can discuss it in this setting, unfortunately.
Is there a way to ask your question in a way that you...
Winco won't disclose anything.
Yeah, that it won't disclose any topics that have been discussed in executive session. And that is just, I'm curious about how, I don't know even how to frame the question without running myself into trouble without consulting with the city attorney, which I did not do.
Yeah.
Which I probably should have. But, and because it was not something I thought about until just now.
Should I recuse myself?
Yeah.
No, it's not a question of
Maybe if I have
you probably have a sense.
I think I have a sense, and maybe I can clarify. In the bylaws, there's discussion of any conflict of interest that applies to any member, officer, or just commissioner.
Yes.
And that would apply to discussions that we have across the board in any capacity related to LURA.
Yeah.
And so that would mean the chair may have to recuse him or herself from time to time. Vice chair may have to recuse him or herself from time to time, as would any other commissioner.
Yes.
Does that generally speak to the nature of your question?
It does speak to the nature of the question. Yes. 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 But
Okay.
I wish I could say
no.
what I'm thinking, but I can't.
Okay. Okay, so there was a nomination and a second for Commissioner McGilvray. Are there any other nominations or nomination motions? No, seeing none, then all in favor of Commissioner McGilvray continuing to serve as vice chairperson for LURA?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, Commissioner McGilvray will continue to serve as vice chair. Thank you. We will now move to one of two different topical discussions for today. As a reminder to commissioners and to any public who are watching, the next two items on our agenda are informational items or discussion items, but are not decision-making items today. So please take notes, pay attention, learn, ask questions. I'll ask Executive Director Laura Moody if she has any preference as we go through this presentation. how would you like questions? Would you like us to wait to the end? Would you like us to ask as you go?
I think as we go is perfect.
Okay, great. Then I'll turn it over to you.
All right. All right. I'm thrilled to do this again. I know several of you, I presented this last year, but it's always good to get the refresher. And for those who are getting it for the first time tonight, feel free to stop me with any questions as they arise. So urban renewal is governed by state law, and basically at the fundamental core of urban renewal is that elimination of blight in the community, and that economic development, job growth, all great ideas are really a result of that elimination of blight. And really at the core, it is just that elimination of blight. And so the Longmont Urban Renewal Authority was created in 2005, and we have 11 commissioners around this table. It's 7 city council members and the mayor, 3 members representing counties, the school district, and the special district, and then as Commissioner McGill-Bright mentioned, we have 1 member appointed by the mayor with city council consent. So one concept that we always discuss is that it is a governmental entity independent of the city. So they really are 2 different entities. They work together, you'll see later, they work together very closely. And then finally, it's not a taxing entity, and that we do not impose a property tax. So what is blight? There are actually 11, and I'm not going to read all 11, but there are 11 concrete characteristics of blight. And you can see things like slum, deteriorating structures, etc. And so as properties or areas are being determined or being analyzed for blight, they need to have 4 characteristics of the 11 to be determined blighted. And then there needs to be 5 of these if eminent domain is to be used. So there is a very analytical approach to blight. So as I mentioned earlier, the LURA board and city council are different entities, but they work closely together. So the process indicates that, so city council designates these areas to be blighted. And then it goes back to, once it's blighted and the urban renewal project plans are approved by city council, it then goes to the LURA board to implement these project plans. And then they oversee these tasks called activities or undertakings. So you can see that there is this play in between both entities and how they both play key roles in the process.
Laura, 1 second. Commissioner Marcy.
I can wait until the end.
We can do it as we go.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question on the last slide. The unusual topography as a blight standard. What is the definition of that? Just I know what topography's definition is, but how are we defining unusual?
That is a good question. I would say that something that would be a hindrance to development. So if there was, say, a slope that wasn't conducive to development, or something, all of these are seen as hindering development.
And this is under state law.
Correct.
Yeah, but where you typically see it is functionally are things like stormwater issues, where the cost of managing the stormwater is so extensive to develop the property that they can't do it, but for having some urban renewal.
To install the stormwater,
Correct.
specifically because of the topography. Got it. Okay, thank you.
And then just as a reminder, you were saying there are 5 or more of these are needed to define a site as blighted, correct?
4.
4.
4 are needed to define a site
4.
as blighted.
So it can't
5
just be unusual topography.
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
And-
practical application helps.
Yes, and to clarify, in a project area, in an urban renewal plan area, you don't need 4 characteristics on every property within the plan area. So it is, you will have specific properties that have specific characteristics of blight. Some have and so it's not always every property in every plan area.
And then, Laura, could you just explain from my own understanding the difference between an activity and an undertaking?
It's terminology.
They
They're
mean the same thing?
They mean the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so responsibilities of LURA. So, like I said earlier, the responsibility of LURA is to implement the urban renewal plans. And these are the ones that are designated by City Council. The Urban Renewal Authority also partners with other entities to make improvements within the urban renewal plan area. So again, it is these improvements that are eliminating the blighting conditions. The Urban Renewal Authority can own and operate public facilities. That we can collect TIF funding, and I will go into TIF revenue in just a minute. Can engage in private-public partnerships, can provide resources, so a grant program, things like that, to support businesses. Fund eligible activities through the issuance of debt or direct investment, and finally acquire property. So all are responsibilities of the Urban Renewal Authority. So Longmont has 2 urban renewal plan areas. The first is the Southeast Longmont Urban Renewal Plan Area. This is in red, and you can see it's South Pratt to Rogers, and then the areas in between. The second one is the Twin Peaks Mall Urban Renewal Plan Area that was established in 2009.
I have a question. I was just curious. I saw a little blue triangle in there, and so that's unincorporated?
Correct. These properties are currently unincorporated, but actually this has been annexed, and we will discuss that particular property.
So in this one right here, there's like up in the middle of the big one right there, a little triangle. Is that correct?
That is not part of the urban renewal plan area because it is green space.
Oh, okay.
No, that one's not.
No.
That one's that parcel that's, I think, not annexed. The blue parcel and the one?
That one.
Up,
Right.
up, up.
Oh, that one. Oh, I thought you were talking about that property.
I just thought it was unusual that it was like unincorporated and then,
It's an enclave.
okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And where specifically is it? What property is that? I was
It's
trying to look at the map.
part of the ownership of so this parcel here and here, this is owned by an individual property owner in different holdings, and this is just one piece that hasn't been annexed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so tax increment financing, and I will get into in there.
I think that's where they have all the old pools, and do you know what I'm talking about?
This one, there's a lot of, I think, junk cars on it.
Junk cars.
Okay,
and
I
there's
know
like an
exactly
old-
where this is at then.
There's a
Okay.
lot of junk cars in that area generally,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No
This is
worries.
gonna drive me crazy. I'm
I know.
familiar with the area, and I was like, I can't think of where that's at.
So tax increment financing. So it is the added taxable value of improvements, and so it is adding that value through that private investment. It's generated from the existing mill levies. It's established through negotiation with the taxing entities. So we do need to have conversations with the taxing entities about the TIF that we are asking for. There's a maximum of 25-year collection period. And it's not a new tax, and it does not increase tax rates. So keep that in mind as I go into the diagram. you'll hear the terms base and increment. And how that works is you establish, say, the property. You'd say, let's say it's dirt. This is the value of the dirt. That is established as your base value. So the land has value. You then go in and create the investment. It then increases in value. What happens then is the value is separated. The base is always maintained. Now, the base is identified, and the base is then reassessed every 2 years by the county assessor. So what you'll see is you will see this stepping up of the base value. You will see the value appreciating due to investment, due to other investment in the area, due to other properties, so that you will see that the base value does not stay stagnant. It does increase, but it does increase at a different rate. So once the property is improved, you will see that steady increase in value. That is the increment. So what you're separating out is that base valuation, and this is what is still paid to the taxing entities. It's this amount is the increment, and this is the amount that is reinvested in the area. Okay.
Yeah, it's a really great explanation there.
Okay. It's not easy, but you definitely need the diagram. Okay, so some success stories. I think this is a great success story to explain how urban renewal has worked in the past. So, Twin Peaks Mall area urban renewal plant area was established in 2009. At that time, Twin Peaks Mall was seeing declining revenue. They were losing anchor stores, and the indoor mall had fallen out of favor. It was then financed. By 2011, the mall was in foreclosure. It was purchased in 2012. The first amendment was drafted in 2012. COPs were financed. Two COPs were used to finance the infrastructure improvements. And then the COPs were then repaid the TIF revenue.
What is COP?
Certificate of Participation.
Okay, thank you.
And so TIF can only be used to make public improvements. So the public improvements that were made at the Village at the Peaks were included things like making traffic flow enhancement, a bike underpass, repairing sanitary sewer, stormwater, public spaces. So again, these are all public improvements that were funded with the investment of TIF. And so a project that we are most recently involved with is the redevelopment project slated for Nelson and Hover. So Nelson Hover, to get your bearings, this is 800 South Hover, is the location of the former Walmart. This is the vacant space that housed the Walmart. This is the parking lot, Hobby Lobby. So just to get your bearings on where you are. So it's the former Walmart. Walmart closed in 2011. The building was demolished since 2016. And the site has been vacant since then. So this has been extremely challenging for our community. I know City Council has expressed concern about the extensive calls for service and what the site has experienced. And it is zoned mixed-use regional center. So there is some flexibility about what it could be. And I'll go into what it's good, what's great potential for it. So Envision Longmont calls out this area as an area of change, that growth would be desirable in this area, and that it is a balance, that there is a goal for a balanced mix of residential employment, retail, and commercial that would allow people to live, work, and play within the city. And the Envision Longmont does call out these properties to meet the needs of Longmont's residents, businesses, and people who work here. So what are the site challenges that are contributing to these blight factors? So this isn't necessarily a blighting factor, but it does make the site challenging. That Village at the Peaks is a successful commercial center, and we don't want to cannibalize that, and that we really don't want to create more commercial here that could jeopardize the commercial at Village at the Peaks. It's extremely challenging because there are multiple ownerships within the different sites, and they have been very challenging to work with. There is a reciprocal parking easement that prevents, that Hobby Lobby has, that limits what can be done there. This is a limited access, and retail always wants excellent access, and this being a right in, right out, limits access. The only access here is through there, and site easements would need to be created to access the property. And then finally, this is an extremely challenging access to the property. So it's all not the best site for more retail. That all being said, what it is good for is residential. It is on the future bus rapid transit service from Boulder to Longmont, and it is a stop. And they're at Nelson and Hover, so that it's really perfect to create that high density residential that could allow people to utilize bus rapid transit to get to work within the city. So there is a lot of potential with that transportation benefit. So the redevelopment project that is being planned is the retreat at Longmont. There is a project planned. Our rendering here is the 256 unit building with an integrated parking garage. They are considering a future phase of building a second building on this parking lot ultimately, but it would then, it does impact Hobby Lobby and how they would utilize the space. And again, the community benefit would be the elimination of the public safety issues on that site. So we do have a development agreement with the developer to utilize TIF for the payment of several of these improvements. The construction of the north-south drive, installation of water, sanitary storm lines, plaza and landscaping, east-west drives, undergrounding electrical, etc. So there are improvements that can be created for that area. They are also contributing $450,000 for fee in lieu, which exceeds the affordable housing requirement. They are required to contribute $300,000, and they have agreed to go 1.5 times to go up to that $450,000. And that contributes to the Affordable Housing Fund, which allows the creation of things like True North. And so we do see that impact to the affordable housing.
I do have a question. During my time on the Housing and Human Services Board, many times developers didn't provide affordable housing on site because it was just really challenging to make that happen, kind of like for the budget or how things were working out. But in a conversation that I had recently with some residents and their developer that they invited me to just tell me about the project, And then looking here and them contributing more, it doesn't seem like the issue is so much that developers can't make the projects happen. And so then my preference is always affordable housing real time versus in a bucket that comes into fruition in 3, 4, 5 years from now. And so I don't even know that that's a question that I'm asking you. It's just an observation that I'm seeing. And so if developers are even able to go above and beyond more than what they're required, then how come we are pushing more for that real-time, on-site affordable housing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so when they look at the pro forma and they're financing the units, essentially what they're saying is they have the ability to do more up front, but when you allocate the revenue generation off of the units over the term of the debt, the cost to the pro forma, I think in this case, was like $2 million. So essentially what they're saying is they can't absorb that reduction in rental revenue to make the pro forma work to get the financing they need. They can do a upfront capital inject and still get the financing from the banks. So it's just how the numbers show themselves in
That makes sense.
At
and
what
it's
stages,
at
too.
that stage, and
time.
it's specific to every project. So every project, some will come in and say, I have no room on the front end, but could build it in over time by doing that. And so every project's going to have their own constraints within their pro forma that really leads you down different paths.
Okay.
The one other thing I'll note on that is the city has more control over what types of units get built with that funding versus what the developer of that project is trying to build, particularly whether it's for sale for rent. So that's another dynamic to factor in. I think it's a great question, and I might encourage you to keep holding on to that question when we get into, I think, our next meeting in March, where we have a whole topical discussion on housing and urban renewal as well. So.
Perfect. Yeah, and it's just coming from
Yeah.
a place as to this is a prime location with stores and shopping centers and access to good schools, and so just, it would be wonderful to have affordable housing sites on there as well, and continuing to push for that as well is, I think, the objective, especially given that we're a growing city. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can add, I think that's a picture of True North that we have there. So when we look at the pro forma, in order to draw the sales price of the homes down to between, let's say, $350 and $450, we had to, as the city, invest within fee waivers and cash about $12 million. And that's probably the other side of it, that in order to get it, we had to invest a significant chunk of money on the front end so that we could balance the pro forma over time in terms of the construction.
And then moving on from that fundamentals into some potential future urban renewal redevelopment activities. So what you will see and what we will be discussing in the future is the major modification process. And so what we will be doing in the future is really looking at our 2 existing urban renewal plan areas, and we will be, like we have done already, creating modifications to existing plan areas, and within that, starting a TIF block, and that's how we're able to then reinvest back into the area. And so that is a major modification process, and the process you will see is the exact same process to creating a new urban renewal plan area. So we will talk over the next year about major modifications and creating new plan areas. So the process is the same. And so there is a very regimented process, and I'll just briefly touch upon where you have to let property owners know that you are doing a blight study. You need to do a blight study to prove the existence of blighting conditions, and that's where it is then an urban renewal plan is created, and a financial impact of that redevelopment is sent to the county to start a negotiation period. And don't worry about these details. We'll go into these in the future, but you'll see how the entities work together in that IGAs are negotiated, then Planning Commission approves compliance with the comprehensive plan. It then goes back to City Council to approve, to establish the findings of blight, adopt the plan, and then it goes back to the Urban Renewal Authority to implement the plan. So it is very regimented, and so you'll see this process. And when we did the modifications last year, I did create a checkbox just to keep everyone updated on where we were in the process. So you'll see this process quite a bit as we move forward with several modifications that we're going to put in motion over the next year.
Can we pause on that slide for a second? Can you go back to the slide for a second?
Sure.
So just as an overall comment here, a lot of the decisions and review and work that we'll do follow kind of this staged process here. And,
yes.
Laura and Katie are excellent about kind of walking us through this as the time comes, but a lot of our work will fall into these different stages. So it's important to understand, you don't have to be a master of understanding all of these pieces, but do understand that there is a logic and a legal process to follow here to do this robustly. Yeah, Commissioner.
Who conducts the blight study?
There are consultants who specialize in this type of activity.
Is that information public where anybody can access? Like, this is in Longmont, these are all the blight studies that...
Yeah, is there a blight study part of the website we can go to?
There is, we can make sure that that the documentation is there for the two urban renewal plan areas that are there. I know the plans have been in the past, but we've gone through some website updates, and I just want to make sure that everything is where it
has
should
to be attached to the documents that come before the Urban Renewal Authority, the Planning Commission, and the Council, so it's embedded within the agenda process.
Yes, no, it is.
How long does a blight study last?
7 years.
Okay.
So you'll see over the next year, we're going to be working on a redevelopment project at First and Main. So you'll see here First and Main, and we have started discussions about creating a new TIF district in this red boundary to start generating TIF in that area. So to get your bearings, we have these properties here are going to be the transit facility, the RTD bus facility that the city is partnering with RTD to construct. And so it's going to be the RTD bus facility, the 10 bus bays, and then the parking. Do you have your bearings?
No, we're good.
You're good. Okay, just making sure. I know. I wanted to put more renderings in, but did not. So that is where the RTD bus facility is going to be, and then the properties around it will have the residential wrap that will include, or the wrap product that will include the residential with some commercial as well. And so the city has signed a phase 1 development agreement with Tebow Properties to construct, to design. Phase 1 appeals is regarding the design of the product that is going to be built there. And phase 2 is, we've started negotiations for the phase 2 development agreement that will oversee the construction of that.
Is the green just a combination of the yellow and blue? So the focus area plus the downtown development authority, is that why it's green?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So, yes, the RTD bus facility does need to be constructed operational by the end of 2027. So the city is tied with the IGA to RTD to construct that. And then we are working with developers about development to the east side of First and Main as well. So.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I thought I saw out of the corner of my eye, I thought Teresa raised her hand. So, okay, so that's where we are with First and Main. And so what we will start is that process, that major modification process to start collecting TIF in that area. So as over the next year, I will walk you through what that looks like. And then the other project that we're looking at a major modification is surrounding the sugar mill properties. And there's one particular property that is starting the redevelopment process. We're looking at creating a major modification for that as well. As you will also see, there are several properties that have not yet been annexed. So we're looking to have those annexed, and because they are not annexed, it means they're not in the urban renewal plan area. So the step would be to annex the properties and then bring them into the urban renewal plan area. All of that would be a major modification as well. So
Annexation as a process would be done through city council, not through the urban renewal authority.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, exactly. So we're also working on other projects, looking at doing an RFP for an infrastructure master plan for the Sugar Mill District. We are realizing that the only way to redevelopment is really together and really looking at that, at the 100 acres as in its entirety. And so really the first step is to really get that fundamental understanding of that infrastructure master plan for the entire 100 acres. So we are working on that RFP for the infrastructure master plan, at the same time working with the property owners for that, again, that entire 100-acre district to start the steps to form a special district as well. So we will also be working with property owners about that flight study update. Like I said, it's 7 years, so it does need to be updated, and so really looking at the 7 years and looking at the properties that need to get brought in, and so there's a lot of detail that needs to happen, a lot of steps that need to happen. So that's something that we'll look at moving forward over the next year as well. So that's a little bit about what to expect. We'll in our next meeting really go through our strategic plan. I do have a strategic plan for 2026, and so really I didn't want to overwhelm everyone, just really looking at the fundamentals today and then going into that strategic plan at our next meeting. So
make a quick comment. So this is similar presentation LURA shared with the Longmont Chamber of Commerce recently, and one of the questions that was raised was, what's the difference between LURA and City Council? And it's a clear difference. City Council sets the priorities, and LURA executes said priorities. It's a simple way of explaining that.
Yeah, thanks. Laura, one clarifying question. When you said status for the infrastructure master plan for the RFP, has the RFP been issued or the RFP is in the works?
In the works.
Like you're working on preparing the RFP to go out for
Correct. Correct. Yes.
Thank
Laura, one more question about that. Do we have more than one group that does blight studies, or is it typically the same group that puts in all the favorable RFPs?
The blight studies.
Yeah.
There are several firms within the Denver metro area, or rather Colorado, within Colorado, that do blight studies. The firm that did the Southeast Longmont Urban Renewal plan, the original blight study, I went back to that firm to start the discussions because it made the most sense. So we did not go through a bidding process to do that update just because the firm that did it made the most sense. But something, usually you have multiple firms that can do the work.
And if a study is done and blight is not determined within that amount of time, if one of the criteria, let's say 3 out of the 4 are met, does that study stay open for 7 years, or do we have to redo it when we think the 4th one is in play?
I have never encountered a situation where we would go out to get a study done when there isn't characteristics of blight.
So we would do a self-assessment first,
Yeah.
do an internal
Yes.
checklist, and be like, okay, we think we hit these 4
It's
or
there,
5.
yeah.
Okay.
My experience on that is we've had 6 or more in place before we even consider that.
Usually, yeah, only having 4 is very rare. Usually, when you know there's 6 or 8, you go out there for it.
Good. So that's a great. Any final questions right now? If not, this today is a great opportunity to digest a lot of information and also still come back. That's kind of part of the value of having these type of topical sessions. Yes, Commissioner Marcel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've heard it said that urban renewal authorities are often thought of as better mechanisms for specifically condemnation in eminent domain issues than city councils are. And just for clarity and public edification, why is that sometimes discussed as a better tool for those kinds of actions? Just generally, why are those more effective?
So generally, there are restrictions within state law in terms of how local governments can utilize condemnation as a tool and conveying property to development groups to actually is a challenge for cities. That is explicitly allowed in the legislation that creates urban renewal authorities for them to do that. So that is generally why at the state level you hear that, because it's explicitly authorized in state legislation.
And I would just jump in that the plan that's developed has to specifically authorize eminent domain, and there's a higher threshold for the number of blight criteria that has to be met in an eminent domain situation.
Got it. Thank you. Good question.
Good. See no other questions. We'll move to our last presentation. Can I grab the keyboard or mouse or whichever? I'll just do this from here. All right, I'm going to take the reins for this presentation here. It will be a little bit less technical on process. And this is going to continue what we hope will be a journey over the next couple months of multiple different topical discussions. So most of what we'll cover today is on the topic of adaptive reuse. And when we say adaptive reuse, we'll define that in a moment. But the objectives for this particular presentation are to help the LURA board understand what's possible as we enter the next phase of planning for multiple core areas of Longmont. To also solicit feedback today. We're going to have some discussion in this. It's forced, so I hope you're awake and paying attention. Solicit some feedback from LURA members on overarching preferences, goals, and vision for kind of urban renewal areas in Longmont. Don't worry, you're not going to have to create any Matisse or Picasso sketches of any kind here, but I know, sorry, Commissioner Christ, but maybe next time. And then thirdly, also just help the Longmont community and public overall understand what LURA-specific tools can help advance in concept. We've had a lot of discussion, even just in the past year, on community character, on beautification, on design and architecture overall, and how that fits into our community's future. And part of what we're talking about as an urban renewal authority is not just property-specific processes and redevelopment tools and financing, but also in service of those particular areas of our community in general. So for today's agenda for this presentation, we're going to have a brief little discussion question. Then we'll talk about what adaptive reuse means. We'll give some examples of downtown urban renewal discussion, examples of adaptive reuse for industrial sites, and then a little wrap-up discussion. And we'll call it a night. Any questions about objectives and agenda for this segment of our agenda? Wonderful. As Laura explained before already, this is just another presentation of the responsibilities of LURA. I'm not going to go back through this because we already talked about it today. But when we talk about the responsibilities of LURA, a lot of them relate to both proactive and reactive roles that the Urban Renewal Authority can play in different ways. And design, adaptive reuse, community placemaking insert themselves, if you look closely, into many of these different pieces of our responsibility. So keep all of this in mind, even though we're going to step back from the technical for the next 20 to 30 minutes. Keep these roles and responsibilities in mind as we go through. So before we actually jump into the content, I want to ask every commissioner here to think about a central plaza, town square, or transit station that has impressed you in another community. I'm going to allow you to think about another community for a moment. Write down, and if anyone does not have a writing utensil, let me know, or if you need something to write on, let me know as well. I came prepared with materials.
Write it up here.
Right here. Great. Does anyone need a writing utensil?
Right in
Excellent.
the green.
There you go. Anyone else?
Yes.
Anyone else? I don't teach during the day, so this is my fun time. Okay, so take about 2 minutes. Write down, think out, where that plaza, town square, or transit station that impressed you was, and write down 1 to 2 features that stood out to you about that place. Take 1 to 2 minutes to think about it. Write down, and then we'll go one by one. If you do not feel comfortable sharing, I will not force you to share. What's the 1 to 2 features? So again, you're thinking about a central plaza, town square, or transit station specifically that impressed you.
Oh, in another
community, yes. You don't get to brag about Longmont for this one. I'm forcing you to step outside of Longmont for this discussion.
It's going to give St. Stephen's plum this year.
Non-commissioners in the room, you're welcome to participate as well by writing down if you want to. We'll just, for sake of time, go through commissioners right now. I'd always welcome your thoughts on another one. Okay. We'll start with Commissioner Parker and work our way across. Again, if you would like to pass, you can take a pass, but genuinely, there's no wrong answer here. We want to hear where was the place, what's the community, and what's the 1 or 2 features that stood out to you.
So I was thinking of Talladega. Easy transportation in and out of the airport. You're pretty simply you're downtown. It was well lit. It was well organized. It had a lot of creative aspects to it, along with places to sit without creating places that could become a problem. Had a lot of restaurants, had hotels. I don't know how to describe the vibe, but it just was there. But I would say, it was super clean. It was well patrolled, and it was very inviting. So that'd be one that I would throw out.
Thank you. Commissioner Berthold. Also welcome. Commissioner Berthold, for the record, has entered the meeting in the previous discussion.
I'm still fighting the residue of my shingles. My nerves are damaged, so I'm in constant pain. So if I grunt while I'm talking, you'll understand why. Okay, well, mine is easy. It's in Pittsburgh. It's where the old J&L plant used to be that I worked in the summers when I worked my way through university. And it was an old mill there, and it was a huge property. And it took it over. It now is a residence for the Steelers and for Pittsburgh's training facilities. University has a medical research facility there where they're doing the biometrics on the training on the people who are crippled, and they're building the body suits and stuff. They put in numerous restaurants, hotels, and apartments. There's secluded walk zones only, so it's a real community. It's bustling all the time, 24 hours a day. It's a functional facility. It used to be, and quite contaminated at the time when they started. I'll guarantee that. So, because I wasn't involved in it, but I've been there to experience it. It's amazing time.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, go for it.
I'm going to share an example. It'll probably surprise you, but I recently attended a conference in Memphis at the Peabody Hotel, and it was the coolest experience. Diversity stood out. It was very clean, vibrant, very walkable, bikeable, lots of activity to shop, to play, have fun, and it was really lit up at night. I just felt safe, which I was surprised because you hear on the media that Memphis is one of the most dangerous places in the country, and I visited it and I didn't feel that at all.
Great.
Did I steal yours?
I will lead by example here and take a pass since I designed this presentation for the sake of time. So I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, so I'm actually going to combine it with what I saw our kiddos do. So these kiddos are now in 7th grade, but when I had them in 3rd grade, they actually did a redesign of the sugar mill. And a couple of groups came up with the idea of having a town center. And as they were working on this, it reminded me of Zona Central in Guanajuato. And that place, and what I really liked about it is, and then I saw the kids' design, I'm like, they're using Mexico as their frame of reference, because in different cities and towns in Mexico, they have a city center. So like a plaza area with maybe where they have their shops or their tents where they set up shop and like markets. But then around that, so there's like a little park area or something in the middle, but then around that, they have the stores and, storefronts. We went, there was Subway there, so it had its chains, but it also had, local business as well. But then above that, you have the residents. And so when the kids were designing these, one of the things that they kept saying was, well, the houses with the yards are very expensive to make. So if you put the houses on top of, so if you have and they were just talking about the houses on top of it, and I was like, oh, like condos and apartments. And, thinking of all the, like how they're conceptualizing it and what their frame of reference was really coming from their experiences in Mexico, and how they bring it's all in there with community gardens, splash pads, and how the center is that hub where people come together. And that's what I really like when we moved to Guanajuato, is to see how community, people who lived in the area, just had their business near there or shop there, and then they go back to their house place. So that work-live
great, thank you.
space.
I'm going to take a I was going to give St. Stephen's Plaza a shout out circa like 2010, 2009 when we had the fountain there. But I will give a shout out to Piazza del San Marco in Venice. If anyone's been to Italy and had the chance to go to that central plaza in Venezia, what's amazing about it is and a lot of this is true in Italy and a lot of places in throughout Europe. It's a central location. There's a ton of art, obviously, but it's also surrounded by commerce in like not in a touristy way for sure, but not a totally touristy way. And then if you go just around the corner, you'll find real entrepreneurship and business that also benefits from that central location. And then just the beautification of those spaces. The other thing is transit, right? So Venice is a little unique because if you travel in Venice, you're traveling by boat predominantly or walking. But everything is walkable, accessible, close together, or easy to travel to. So I think it's a combination of everything we've seen. But you walk in any of those places, and it's just really awe-inspiring.
So I captured this right. Boats everywhere in Longmont, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's make it
Let's
happen.
do it.
Although the 2013 flood, there was a guy kayaking down there.
Commissioner McCoy.
Well,
Down our street.
I'm going to piggyback on McGillfrey's Memphis element. The Beale Street specific area they've reinforced many of the very ancient buildings and churches. In fact, there's a Chick-fil-A right there with inside a church, a hollowed out church, and it's got all steel girders and everything on it. And they used that pad where all the pews used to be and everything as their summer outside seating. And it's kind of interesting because, as we start to look at some of these areas, it's going to have some of that. And then again, places like Savannah and Charleston where they have these marketplaces, the straw markets, and that sort of element of where it draws people to the center city. And of course, European cities like Barcelona that have these big plazas. So I think some of that is critical as we start to explore what to do in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Christ?
Well, close to home, I was thinking of Chipungu Park up there at Centera. It's between high-density housing and commercial. It's got waterway in there. There's a lot of trail and artwork in it. Several bridges, several different ways you could go about it. The dog really likes it. And I ran into several friendly people who said, we live close and we use it often. The thing, it's close off of I-25, but it doesn't necessarily have direct transit to it. But that's something we could add into ours. And then also, if we're talking out of state, maybe downtown Santa Fe, where, the old is mixed with the new. It's very walkable, very artistic, and, fun little things to find everywhere, so even in the snow.
Yeah, great. Future Commissioner Alghofer.
Similar to Commissioner Marzing, I'll go across the pond. So Munich, Germany, Old Town specifically, very walkable, very close, connected to transit. They have a river corridor that is very active with the community. There's farmers markets that are mixed in and used almost year round. There's a lot of commerce mixed in with residentials on second stories. Very walkable, connected to the airport very easily with transit. So when that comes to mind, definitely Munich.
Thank you. And Commissioner Pietro.
I've never been there, but I've seen it on movies a million times, chick flicks, and so I don't think I have to be there to get, if you can catch the vibe through a TV screen, then they got it going on, okay. But it's at the Rockefeller Center, the ice skating rink, the old go skating with your partner with the Christmas tree backdrop. I think that would be so cool. Just having I think there's something about just kind of that liveliness, seeing kids play, seeing families together and enjoy themselves. It really contributes to just the spirit of holidays or shopping or being grateful. And so I think if a town can have a town center that allows for activity and life, it's huge. So I'll have to, when I do go there, I'll have to tell you folks if it met the expectation. But
Excellent. Well, thank you. There was one other feature that all of those places had in common that you just shared, which is it evoked a smile when you were talking about it. And that wasn't, I don't think, forced. Like genuinely recounted either a memory or an aspirational vision or goal at some point in terms of what was possible in that place. So keep those thoughts in mind as we continue to work through this. I actually have some examples of downtown Santa Fe if you haven't seen it before, because I was just there 2 weeks ago. So what is adaptive reuse when we're talking about this? According to the American Planning Association, paraphrase definition effectively here is it's the process of converting buildings or broader places, spaces that have outlived their original purpose to accommodate new uses. Relatively straightforward in concept. The technique started to emerge particularly in the 70s as communities were starting to look at land scarcity issues and trying to think about not only conserving and preserving resources, but also how are they managing growth among a limited land area to begin with. That's really where it came from. So why are we adapting and reusing? Well, a few overall benefits, and not every project hits every single benefit every time, but in general, most adaptive reuse projects have some type of benefit from a cultural value. We were just talking about history of place or community character, heritage, economic advantage, increased local tax revenue because you're redeveloping a previously developed and underutilized site usually, and increased customer foot traffic usually for existing businesses too, because usually those are right in the thick of things. Those are right in the center when we think of 2 of the projects that LURA was highlighting, or all 3 of the projects that we highlighted. The old Walmart site, First and Main, Sugar Mill. Maybe the Sugar Mill is probably the one that's least close to existing businesses right now relative to the other 2. And then environmental sustainability as well. Less waste to landfills by repurposing existing structures and material. You're reusing these materials and you're using less energy overall, fewer resources in construction, and overall reduced development sprawl. Overall, and actually reducing sprawl reduces traffic at a net effect too. So there's all kinds of different sustainability benefits that come from that. When we think about Longmont's specific benefits, adaptive reuse would reactivate previously developed areas by retaining those primarily industrial character in our case, and that aesthetic. Supports more housing where we already have existing infrastructure, multimodal transportation options, and businesses, which is much more cost effective for Longmont to maintain long term. And then lastly, it transforms community liabilities, Sugar Mill, Flour Mill, other sites, into assets that reduce development pressure on existing neighborhoods. All much more specific to Longmont, but all of those overall benefits likely apply to some of the projects too. So, adaptive reuse helps preserve character, and in some cases, in our case, even preserves community skylines, depending on, well, not really depending, almost every angle you look at Longmont from, you can see some element of our industrial past. And of course the mountains. Great. I'll pause here for questions on the technical side, and then we're going to get into the really fun part of this, which is a lot of different fun examples. Any questions on adaptive reuse as a concept and some of the benefits that I talked about there?
I think another benefit is the ripple effect of incentivizing what can be. I think of South Main Station and what that did. I mean, that's just an incredible example.
Like a turkey factory.
Right. And how that, you take Whitby, right? And how they took like this old industrial, very blighted turkey slaughtering building and converted it into something very meaningful, and how that incentivized additional reuse into the future.
Yeah, great. Good. Let's keep rolling. So for the next part of this discussion, I want us to think particularly about the steam and sugar factory areas. So really First and Main Sugar Factory. Of course, we have more urban renewal areas, as we were talking about, between Peaks and some other kind of brownfield areas in North Main Street and other parts of the community. For today's discussion, focus on First and Main Sugar Factory, just for the purpose of kind of how this discussion can be most applicable here. When we think about embracing innovation to make First and Main the centerpiece of Longmont, there are 6 different factors that we can start to consider that already exist there. Current and future transit-oriented development, housing that's walkable to retail, breweries, food, other services. I think many of you highlighted walkability in that kind of plaza or central location, sense of place before. Immediate greenway and trail access that we already have. The Kaufman Street revamp. electric substation, existing infrastructure, it's part of our community, and the old flour mill silos that are right there, not the sugar mill, the old flour mill silos right at the curvature of South Pratt. Yeah. So we have kind of those features. I'm going to walk through a couple examples that relate to each of these. But with those examples, I just want to make a couple disclaimers here. The images presented here are solely for the sake of education discussion. They are not reflective or representative of any decisions or commitments we have made at this time from the City of Longmont or the Urban Renewal Authority on any projects at any stage. Yeah? Great. So when we think about modern American transit plazas, and you have most of these pictures in your packet too, and I can send out this virtually after, they can be designed to repurpose old parking lots and historic structures while still meeting community needs. You have this example that is in California. What part of California was that? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name now of the place. No, it's not one of the main cities. Oh, now I'm blanking. I had it literally listed in my thing. Okay, well, the next one you should recognize, that's Denver. That's Denver Union Station right there. You have repurposed kind of whole streetscape there, plus the historic station. This is Detroit here, where they really focused on a whole walkable plaza with green space out in front of their main historic train station. And then this is a small town in northern New York that I don't know how to pronounce. But they had a nice combination of kind of green space, walkability, and kind of mild housing kind of right adjacent to where you're approaching a downtown kind of plaza. So all different things, well lit. I think I heard some people highlight that as well to kind of truly create that sense of place. Santa Fe, Commissioner Christ, thank you for jumping ahead here. If you haven't been to Santa Fe, really interesting state capital, just south on the I-25 corridor. I just went there on a road trip literally 2 weeks ago, not in advance of an adaptive reuse presentation, but just so happened that I grabbed a few of the pictures to use, obviously not all of them. But it's a great example of adaptive reuse, creative placemaking, and economic vitality around transit uses. Specifically, if you haven't been down to Santa Fe, and just for context, Santa Fe is a state capital of about, I think, 85,000 people, not that much smaller than Longmont, and certainly not bigger. So when we think about this, it's not a terrible illustration of what we can think about. Santa Fe's rail yard history highlights adaptive reuse and these terms. This is modern day downtown Santa Fe rail yard, not the downtown Santa Fe Commissioner Chris that you might have been thinking about with the adobe structures. But this is their old rail yard repurposed. You have a lit up water tower that is representative of the old tower. It was rebuilt. They're kind of right along this commuter rail and freight rail line. Walkable, plazaable place, sense of place there that you're really capturing. That's where they have their farmers market too. There's a whole indoor structure as well for that. So that's downtown Santa Fe. When you start to think about adaptive reuse meeting creative placemaking for even common facilities like parking garages, you can level those up. This is a parking garage in Buenos Aires, or at least it was a parking garage. I think they adapted part of it to make it offices and kind of public space and park space above. This is, I believe, Atlanta, one of their new garages, and they use a rooftop for a park there. And then this is Kansas City, where this is the top of a parking garage there, changing that space up to serve a broader community purpose. We can't ignore the electric substation that they have, so let's take a look at what Seattle did recently. Their Denny substation redefined what electric substations can look like and how they can be integrated into community placemaking. This is one of their substations that they built out. They thought about kind of the reuse and not so much it's still a substation in the middle, but they thought about how do they repurpose the exterior of it to serve kind of broader integration with other community goals. Everything from food trucks to dog parks and beyond. And of course, we can't forget about those grain silos. We've got to talk about the grain silos. What can they be? Well, there are multiple repurposed grain silos that usually keep that same character and structure that are used for a sense of place. One of my personal favorites is in San Antonio, Texas here. That is a hotel bar that kept the grain silos in the structure, and you actually can go sit in those silos as like a group table. So they can truly be adapted to a lot of different purposes, not just a sense of place, but actually a different functional space. So, quick pulse check here before we go on with a couple other examples. This will be a very quick run down the line. What's a feature or design approach from the examples you just saw that particularly intrigued you? And or, you can answer either one of the questions. What feature or design approach did you see that made you think, wow, I would love to integrate this into First Main? You can answer either question. Take 30 seconds, think about that, and then we'll start with you, Commissioner Prieto.
I think the one thought that comes to mind is kind of like that historic piece. It's like, how do we really incorporate those historic pieces? Or when you look at like the electric station, I see it every day because I live right in front of it. But like, I went to Florida and they had like an art district and there was art painted on everything. And so like, could we put art on the walls of that electric station? And how do we make First and Main kind of like walkability, not necessarily open to traffic, but just foot traffic and stores and kind of this other experience, especially being so close to the transit station and the Greenway. So that's just something that I thought about looking at the pictures of Santa Fe and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Future Commissioner Culpepper.
One of the things that gave me inspiration is there's a lot of buildings that have a high level of utility, and they're usually not very pretty. So what was cool with some of the parking structures, we're going to have a parking structure at First and Main. How do we make it fit into the community without it being an eyesore? Similar to our power stations, we have to have them. They're needed for our operations, but how do we transform them into something that is pleasant to see as well as has high utility?
Commissioner Chris.
So I'm looking at the photos with California and Denver and then Detroit and unknown New York City.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things I noticed, and this predates you, Councilor Popkin, is a comment was made from the Sustainability Board about putting trees in concrete prisons, kind of like they did in Denver here.
Mm-hmm.
And versus, if you look below that, where there's a lot more space for growth and a lot more green in both of those photos. And I think something that we tend to do maybe in semi-arid areas is we tend to work around it. But it would be nice to have them have more open space, and I've also seen parking lots that have little tufts of greenery that that's resistant to people driving over it all the time. But it does really make it more attractive, add some more pleasing.
Prevent people from running over trees.
Oxygen level, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Chris. Commissioner McCullough.
Well, the Santa Fe one, I've been there several times, and the sense of community that's built around that farmers market area there and the restaurants around it and just the indoor market, I think adds to the community. It doesn't take away from the old downtown or anything. It just gives another place, that third place we talked about, and with some of these historical elements of this and the industrial feel of what you see here, that's likely to be more the reality in some of the aspects of our endeavors, I'm sure. And then I think the points that you were making with some of those silos, that the functionality of that is likely to be also part of it, that component that we know we're not taking out. I mean, you had somebody from the development community said, you just tear it down, we could just put up something that looked a lot like them, but in a smaller version. And I always thought that was a little bit of an amazing comment, but that's not what I think we're about here. And we're going to take on this. And I like to see that utilization and that feel of that place.
Old meets new.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, Commissioner Marcy.
There's nothing boxy. And what I mean by boxy is the architectural style that we've seen really popularized. And I get it. It's flat roofs, boxy corners. I think when we hear from the community about, Parkmont and all that stuff that's out there, I think a lot. It's a boxy industrial look that is flat roofs, cheap to make, cheaper materials, easy for folks to build, but like there's shape to every single one of these things that you're showing us. There's architectural sense, there's a sense of purpose in every design point. And part of that is the integrated history that's happening here. And I think all of these places that we're talking about have, especially in the Sugar Mill site, there are elements, key elements of our community's history. And as the, whether it be HPC or whatever perspective you're looking at this from, protecting that and blending those architectural styles, I think is part of how you create that community space. So yeah, just what's striking me is that nothing is that kind of McModern architectural style that we've seen.
Yeah. Well, so there is a style. So these apartments that are coming up in these newer buildings, there's an architectural style to that. Like there's a name. I don't know what it's called.
I Googled it. I got McModern.
McModern? No, but my brother's an architect in LA. And so we were talking about this current design, because we're seeing them everywhere. But you think about the 80s or the 70s or 60s.
Exactly.
There was this style that was, and so it's less, so not necessarily they're using cheap materials, but it's just that architectural style. I don't like it. I don't think it's very appealing to me. So one thing that I liked, and especially as we're looking in redeveloping these other areas, First and Main, the Sugar Mill, is that how we can incorporate that piece of history into, and it makes its own unique style that sets Longmont apart from other cities.
Yeah.
So that's what and I think that we'd also have more public buy-in and more support if we keep that aesthetic piece of Longmont and its history embedded into our new development and design.
I just have one thing to add.
Sure.
I was watching Cities Rising. It's on PBS, and it talks about gentrification and kind of keeping that cultural aspect of neighborhoods. And so, even incorporating the neighborhoods into the development phase of what that looks like and what that historic piece is. And so, when we think about First and Main, we have the tire shop guy right at the corner, and then there's history to other tenants there as well. And so what would that look like? And what is First and Main? What history is there for them? And how do we incorporate that into our ideas where we're just a bunch of outsiders coming in and saying, oh, look at what this could be, but how do we really maintain that cultural piece? And First and Main's kind of a bad example because there's not a lot of people that live on that street.
No, but when we talk about pub, what's going to happen with
that's
McCarthy's?
Culture right there.
Yeah, I'm like, McCarthy's pub. You
so
can't
just
do that.
thinking about that piece.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Grant, do you happen to know what the style is called?
The architectural style that's popular right now?
Yeah, the boxy.
I'll buy off.
Yeah.
McModern?
McModern.
Yeah, I would
I
touch
think
my
it's
brother.
eclectic more than anything. I don't know if there's a true architectural style.
It's the repeated window design.
I'm just curious. Yeah. I won't add too much again because I put the presentation together, but I will note, I'll just make one comment. Santa Fe is a really good example of two things. One, modern uses too, not just like a farmer's market, but actually the building in the top left picture there, due west there, or I guess it's technically south there, but like the picture on the part of the left there, that's actually a movie theater. So you can really inside it's just a modern movie theater, but it's about kind of how it integrates in. And then the other point I'll just make, somewhat building off of Commissioner McCoy's point, keeping those old relics, if you will. This is a good example, though, of something that was torn down and rebuilt for health and safety reasons, and that might happen in some cases. We don't know exactly what we might be stepping into in every situation. And so it's important to note that you can preserve character even if you rebuild a structure, depending on how you approach it, too. In the Santa Fe examples, that water tower itself was not the original. And so that's a good example of kind of how they rebuilt that, still kept keeping that character, and frankly preserving some of that integrated history, just more through the story of kind of the oral history of it and where it originated from, what the inspiration was.
Yeah, I think a couple things I want to highlight.
I'm going to ask you to stick to really important.
Well, so the silos, and with what we have with the Granary food court that's in the works. So we're doing a lot of amazing things in the downtown, and now we're expanding on that, which I love. And I think about flexibility and adaptability. reuse that in 10 years from now it's still relevant and speaks to Longmont. And like that parking is a great example. I never would have thought like a park on top of parking. But in the future we're not going to be driving as much, so we need to be mindful of that. And so we're going to be building a ton of parking, but 20 years from now, 30 years from now, will we need all this parking? So that really stood out. It's like, how do we build structured parking in a way that can be reused and flexible?
Well, kind of based on that same thing, we see it today actually when you go down to the left-hand facility down there. They don't have grass; they have
turf.
Yeah, and that's what you would see basically if you were having that type of thing. In some cases, not at all.
Yeah, but I think this is always on my mind because I'm always kind of worried about where you have the depot right there. And how does that old building blend into all this new South Main? And I think we've done a really nice job blending the two because it's very industrial as we go down South Main. So how do we embrace the industrial feel and modernize it?
Yeah.
Boy, a lot's been said. I agree with a lot of it. I think my key points would be for both facilities that we're talking about, First and Main right now, is it's the history of Longmont. Is that rail station down there is not part of this, but it's there. It's going to be there, and it's to me it's like an ability to extend the old time part of Maine down the street. Because everybody is up from Third forward, and then this light here, you put the lights all the way down to Second, which is really cool because there's a couple of businesses in there yet, and we can extend it to one, and so that it doesn't stop it between Third and Ninth. You know what I mean? The old time has a chance to extend down there, and using the history of what's there to interest people to be able to come down and see something about that, and then enjoy it's there, enjoy other aspects of it, whether it's a park or a brewery or whatever goes in there. That's all I just think it's important to do that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Parker, round us off.
Sure. I would just dovetail on that. I think all of it had good flow, and if we keep that flow going and keeping that culture piece and the historic piece of it as a part of it and be mindful of it. Looking at these, I'm not a very creative person. I like lines clean. I like my stuff organized in a box. But I look at it and I can say I can really appreciate some of this design, but there's a fine line between being creative and yet still having class. And it's kind of like art and graffiti. Okay, it's the eye. But I'm looking at all of this. I kept seeing it's clean, it's creative, but it's not over the top. I would have painted that silo. That's what I'm like. That rust on that would bother me. I'm
That
like,
back one, yeah.
that, will you?
I liked that they put a
Like, do
stage there. I
something.
thought that was creative that they used it just kind of as a backdrop. But yeah, I would paint it too.
Is that Waco? Let it rust on its own.
Yeah, that's Waco. Yeah, that's Waco. So great, cool. Thank you for all of those thoughts there. Appreciate it. We're gonna keep rolling. This is the last part of this, and so for the last part, I do want us to shift now to thinking about the sugar mill area specifically. And so obviously, I don't need to tell you about the sugar mill much here, other than you have kind of that the elements of communities that have repurposed for modern uses that still maintain the site's character. What are the key elements that when you look at the sugar mill, you think about? Well, you have the smokestack, you have the water tower, you have the refining storage silos, and you have these long buildings that maybe they're boxy shaped, but they have a different character because they were built in a different era, right? I think Commissioner Berthel, your reference to Pittsburgh, another great example of very long buildings that were built in a different era.
When I toured the sugar mill, I was telling you, it reminded me of the steel mill. I mean, it's so hazardous in there, and
Yeah, I'll show you
even
some
if you were
pictures of
working
it.
there, it was hazardous. Now that it's just sitting, there's all kinds of.
It's clean, it's beautiful.
You take the wrong steps, you could fall 30 feet, into a hole. but I think thinking of that, I'm thinking of what they did to do with steel mill. They incorporated the hot bridge, which brought the molten iron from the blast furnace over to the open hearth. And they pick them up and pour them. Everybody's seen the old steel mill shows where they are pouring out or tapping. That's where I lived for every summer. Up in that is open hearth doing that.
Yeah.
And but they incorporated that, and they have some other aspects of the steel mill that they utilize in whatever they did down there. So it's like you had to be there to know what it was. Probably like you had to work there to know, but it's still there, and it's still part of the history of the city.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I was thinking. The same thing when we were talking about it.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I'll just note on this slide is when we think about these features, to the comment I made in response to Commissioner McCoy before, not all of them may be able to be preserved. We don't know yet. That's a question mark still. But you can tear down a long brick building and repurpose the brick in some cases too, right? The materials can be repurposed to still keep some of that character in certain situations. So while there are many unknowns still in this situation, we can be thinking about how can we adapt and reuse not just the exact structures, but some of the materials involved to maintain some of that history and character and legacy.
How about the ATV track down there? Could we preserve that?
No idea. No idea. I think the question of can we preserve some of these is a very different topic for another time. So again, another angle here, one of my favorite views of this, but we're thinking about skyline, retaining community character when we're thinking about this. What we're really thinking about is what's the eastern gateway of Longmont, right? And so how do we think about this? Well, let's take a look at what a few other cities have done when they're looking at these types of industrial efforts. And I have a little tour for you here, just to wrap it up. We're going to go through Pittsburgh, Green Bay, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Chicago, Minneapolis, and Todos Santos and Mexico City, just to kind of show a few final examples here. And honestly, each of these cities probably has more than one, so I'm just going to show a snapshot of a couple examples. Some of these are my real photos that I've taken too, just because I'm a nerd for this, and so I look for these types of projects too. So here's Pittsburgh. I don't think it's the exact example you were speaking to, but this is the Hazelwood Green area.
That's
Mill
the Hazelwood,
19.
yeah, which is where U.S. Steel was.
Yes, U.S. Steel was at Mill 19 here.
And I've been there many times too.
My brother-in-law lives in was from Aliquippa, Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah,
He did
right.
a similar sort of thing with the old steel building there, and that's just a signature piece of that community.
Yeah, so they use this for a couple things. I've actually run an event in this, or co-run an event for work there, just by happenstance. But the rooftop, as you see from that top right picture, is entirely solar covered now. So they kept the exoskeleton of the steel mill, and you can see a little bit more of that in that top left, and they covered that with solar on the top. But it's actually a finished, I think, 4-story building, 3 or 4-story building inside. You can see that better here. Partnership with Carnegie Mellon and the private sector for multiple different offices. There's a robotics lab in here, multi-story facilities, conference center, indoor-outdoor space. And this is just the start of this, actually. If you see that whole field out there, the whole rest of that is another probably tens of acres of brownfield site that they're going to continue to work on there. But what they did especially there was really keep the structure. And again, they kept kind of clean lines. I think Commissioner Parker is seeing the clean lines and kind of bright colors, but not anything ostentatious. They just kind of modernized it a little bit to keep that character while still serving now an advanced manufacturing innovation center. So that's one example of what Pittsburgh did. Go to a much smaller town, about a third of the size of Pittsburgh, that's Green Bay. They leveraged their old train station to redefine, if you're a Packers fan, which I don't think anyone in here is, but if you were a Packers fan, you would know Titletown well, because that's where the Green Bay Packers basically set up shop. They enhanced the character of this whole revitalized dining, brewery area, and makerspace. Kept keeping an old smokestack, throwing Titletown on there itself. That's visible from the street, visible from the river.
But it's kind of like the Tivoli in the sense of how they redid that whole space there. I think that's one of those things that it would be worth a tour to kind of look at for, once people start really talking serious, like running that smokestack.
Take a look. I want to point out, just in relationship to Commissioner Marsing's comment before, if you look at the left-hand side of this picture, there is some of that kind of new modern style of architecture and boxiness there, and kind of straight edges, but because they kept some of the old brick, they kept the smokestack, it's broken up a little bit more visually there. And so you keep some of the old aesthetic, bring some of the modern in, and you start to have that blend of character and design in a different way. And so like there are ways to integrate kind of more modern designs which have a relationship to what type of materials and costs that you're using while still keeping some of them too. One of my favorite examples, San Antonio's Pearl District, if you haven't been there, I highly recommend it, retains its unique character because of its defining elements. The smokestack, the old tanks that I'll show you in a moment, the old architecture, and it is now a modern food hall, brewery, public space, shopping, apartment. This is not a rendering, this is a real photo that I personally took. That is how active it is, and that's a quiet day. What did it used to be? It used to be this, an old bottling facility. That large kind of tan building in the back, that, what's that, 7-8 stories? That's right there. You see that in the center of that picture with the smokestack, with some of those.
That was a bottling facility?
What?
That was a the 7, that's crazy.
Pearl Brewery bottling facility.
Just the architecture that goes
And here's an aerial view if you want to see it from another angle. You see a lot of long, flat buildings. You see some tall buildings, or you see a mix of heights. You see a mix of industrial uses. And most of those structures, they have still kept. And so what has it become? You keep the smokestack, you keep some of those old terraces, you keep rail tracks. You see that? There's another angle for the plaza. Splash pads, who mentioned that from before? Public space splash pads, they cost $0 to sit there because it's a public space. That oil drum there is actually now a planter. They cleaned that out, kept that. There's now a light commercial area that's part of it too. And then you have various innovative restaurants because they created such a space that the Culinary Institute of America wanted to set up an anchor institution there, one of its facilities there. So that tan building now is now a luxury hotel. That's where those silos were in that like speakeasy format. You have residential mixed-use apartments. You have public space, food hall, multiple commercial operations as well, and office space all in one spot. Oklahoma City. If you have not been to Oklahoma City, this is Bricktown, named obviously for the metal that they use in bricks. I'm just kidding. They revitalized this whole area that was kind of old manufacturing warehouses to modern dining, modern recreation, walking paths, various shops and commercial. That's Bricktown. I think a really cool example, if you've never been to Oklahoma City, or if you have been, it's called the Jones Assembly now. It's a restaurant and bar. Former Fred Jones Manufacturing Company building. That's what it used to look like. What does it look like now? Actually not terribly different. They modernized it. They put some more glass in. They updated the patio space, the pavilion, added kind of this courtyard in between that kept some of the culture. That was a real-life picture that I took at an event that was hosted there. Really a gathering space for people while still keeping that character entirely intact.
How close is this to the baseball park there?
It's a few blocks away. This is a couple blocks from the main downtown Citrus Park area convention center, yeah. Laura, you didn't happen to go to the OKC, or either of you go to the OKC Brownfields Conference in 2022? Okay, that was something else. You're wondering what to do with a large shed. Well, Chicago's no longer salty about it. They have turned that into the salt shed as the new hotspot. That is what that looks like from an aerial view. Outdoor entertainment, indoor entertainment space, multiple restaurants, bars, commercial space. What's the inside of that salt shed look like now? It's now an entertainment venue on the inside as well. For guest speakers, for musical acts, for all kinds of different things. So again, they didn't actually change the structure a ton, but they worked with what they had. Minneapolis, if we're looking at height in a different way, they're Mill City. Kind of looks dilapidated there, but what they really did, they actually kept some of the structure that had fallen apart, not used it for public purposes, but built a whole glass structure within it. Not unlike what we saw in the Pittsburgh Mill, and allowing people to access that for different purposes while still keeping that old mill history and character there. So a lot of stuff. Let's, moving down into a different country here, Todos Santos in the Baja California Sur part of Mexico, revitalized their old sugar refining facility into a modern open air food and shopping experience. The biggest element that they kept, they redid a lot of this, but the biggest element they kept is that brick smokestack. Right there, they have a plaque on it that honors what it used to be. They kept the brick, they cleaned that up a little bit, and there are a few other things like that they kind of kept as kind of remnants or relics of the old days there. And then for something a little bit more simple here, Mexico City's done a lot of great adaptive reuse. They transformed old warehouses into studio and office space. Kind of looked like they were falling apart there. They cleaned that up, made it kind of serve a modern kind of studio and office space functionality there with some bright colors and a lot of plants. Commissioner Christ, I don't think this would be just trees in a concrete prison. I think they started to think about small little integrated gardens there. And then here's a great example of a conference room that you can now rent out for co-working. You kept half of it as the old brick and half of it as new drywall. So again, the interior design matters as much as what you do with the exterior as well. So just to wrap this up, there are costs associated with cleanup and reuse of these. The sites featured, however, are succeeding because they retained that character. And I think they're a draw, they're an attraction. It's what are the top 10 things to do when you go to this place? Usually these places come up as a place to visit because of that too. So from an economic development, from a tourism, from a just regional vitality standpoint, we have that. What are some of those key ingredients? It's very high level, obviously. Coordination and collaboration to preserve key features is important. Public and private funding, obviously, and financing important. Community support, and part of the impetus for this whole presentation was just having LURA start to think about vision here. We don't have to have all the answers at this moment. We probably don't. We don't have to all agree on something at this moment. But just knowing what's possible gives us something to work towards. In case you were wondering, if you've never been inside the sugar mill or haven't been in a region,
Shall we go tour it now?
We can.
Right now would be
really.
I took these pictures. I took these pictures on a tour that was authorized. I had my safety gear, so don't get any ideas, kids. You have kind of the inside of that main brick building is on the top left. You have that alley in between two of the brick buildings in the center there. And then you have kind of a different perspective up close on some of the multiple layers of brick buildings there. Obviously, there's the tin shed too, the water tower, a few other things. But we have a lot of those features to work with that we just saw in other areas too, right? So we're not starting from scratch. And in case you really didn't want to start from scratch, ChatGPT helped me out a little bit when I threw a couple terms in there and said, what's possible here?
I like it.
So this is entirely just for the sake of discussion and illustrative, but it's not changing the height too much of what the structure is. It's keeping a lot of the architecture or style of architecture at least. It's adding a little boxiness, Commissioner Marsing, but it's integrating it in with diverse shapes and sizes here. So there are many ways that we can do this. Obviously, we'd entail some professional designers and architects when we get to that point. But that's what communities have already been doing across the country. And so when we think about LURA's responsibilities going forward, they're in service of a broader community agenda. And what that agenda is, we're going to help shape. And so I appreciate everyone participating today, because I think that's giving a sense of what makes you tick, what stands out to you in these different situations as we start to think about projects going forward. So the last thing to think about here, and I don't think we'll go one by one here for this, but what's one thing, actually I do want to hear, what's one thing you were thinking about now that you weren't before today? And it could be from Laura's presentation earlier or from this discussion. We'll go rapid fire on this one. So think one sentence. What's one thing you're thinking about now that you weren't today? Take 30 seconds, and then we'll start with Commissioner Parker. So take 30 seconds, I won't rush you.
I was not thinking of the creativity that can happen with an old structure.
With any old structure?
With just a blighted area, I wasn't thinking about how creative could you get.
Cool. Commissioner Bithell?
You have to have open-minded vision.
Open-minded vision.
Yeah,
Commissioner McGovern?
Everything starts with imagination. And it did remind me of the 2011 First and Main Revitalization Study, Harold.
So, I've been thinking about this for a long time, being on here. So there were pictures, and I had to go back to the 2023 visit that we did, because I toured it as well. A few years ago. But there was some images that went, and it might have been Charlie who did put them together, are they still, have you seen those?
I've seen some of those. Those
Okay,
were presented
so
at the
are
council
they
at the time.
still like, we're still kind of pursuing something to this effect, or it's kind of all out in the open still?
Yeah, it's kind of still open, out in the open.
Okay,
But yes.
there isn't anything that I'm thinking now that I wasn't thinking before.
Fair enough.
For a while. I think the biggest thing is, the reality. What is our reality? How are we gonna get there? I don't wanna jump so far ahead that we're missing the cleanup and all the other
Absolutely.
ins and outs that we have to take care of.
Yeah, Commissioner Massey?
I'll also take the second one, the feature structure. I'm thinking specifically about the smokestack and the main grain silo of the Great Western Sugar Mill Company, the 3 triangle one with the GW on the top. It's faded, but still there. From historically, those are the, I think, most historically valuable pieces. The buildings are one thing, but those 2 pieces, I think, are historically the most valuable. So as we think about development of that specific site, protecting those 2 structures, and I know protecting historic structures, especially of that size, is incredibly expensive, but those are the things that I'm thinking about. Adaptive reuse on the rest of the site is less important, I think, for the broader community than protecting those 2 historical buildings.
When I served on planning and zoning in the 90s, and Kiki Wallace had his charrette at the Dickens, and we were talking about what could happen. And then it happened. And we developed we brought about a development that is actually a signature piece throughout the United States that people go and reference all the time. And I think this is at that stage. We just need to get those creative juices flowing and everything with folks, and really start to realize this is what we want. And now we look down there at the prospect, and people go, yeah, this is what we want.
Commissioner Christ?
So when we were talking about First and Main, and I started thinking about the old depot building, I was thinking of that book, Once Upon a Town. Has anybody read it? It's about a depot that in Nebraska, and how it became kind of the center of the community when the troops were coming through. It was, during World War II, most of the trains came through carrying troops. And unfortunately, they tore down that depot, and it's been a big loss for just kind of an emotional wound, if you will, because a lot of these structures have not only historic value, but they're have very strong emotional attachments to our history. So just to be sensitive about that, and how do we honor it, that emotional piece, not just the structure itself, is something that came up for me. So if you get a chance to read that book, I think it's written by
Once Upon a Time, you said?
Once Upon a Town. I think the guy that wrote it is Green, and I think it's name ends with an E, so Greme, I think. So about that.
Thank you. Future Commissioner Coughlin?
What I thought was interesting is that I always try to wrap my mind around how we can reuse some of the buildings, and so they're very specific. And one of the things that I thought was amazing in some of your photos is using the exterior of the building, but then building a building within the building, because you're keeping the historic out exterior of the buildings, but you're adding something new that's stable, that's conditioned, that is kind of livable. So that is really neat. I've never thought to do something like that, where you're preserving the exterior, but you're building a building within a building, and I think that's pretty neat.
That's a super cool example. My cousin's a firefighter in Pittsburgh, as an aside, and so they've done training for this building specifically because a steel mill is a unique structure in the first place, but this is even more unique. And so he's had pictures from the roof that he sent me from there too, of just like how they're navigating the whole thing. Commissioner Prieto, why don't you wrap us up?
I'm just trying to think where we're going to put my ice skating ring. Just No, it's funny because I tell my husband, I drive an old 2011 Chevy Silverado. It's his old truck because I sacrificed my new car so he could get his dream car. But I want, my dream car is and this is going somewhere, I promise. My dream car is a convertible BMW, super hot, sexy mom car, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. And so I tell my husband, I don't want anything if I can't have what I want. And so I say that story to say, when I'm thinking about the Sugar Mill, and I'm thinking about First and Main. Like, these are not just any sites, right? There's other sites out in Longmont, and you plop something on it, it really doesn't mean all that much. But these two sites are so critical to get right. First and Main being that you're going straight into downtown that has so much character.
It's the gateway to downtown.
It's the gateway to downtown. You can make or break downtown. It needs to blend. It needs, I mean, there's just so much there that we can and have to do. And then we look at the Sugar Mill property and the location and the history. It's like, so I come with it kind of with the mentality of, if we can't get what we want, then I don't want nothing at all. I'm sorry. Harold's like, oh no. But
no pressure.
But so I think it's just really going to be really important to do all the front loading work up front and getting it right up front, so that way we're not all stuck at the end of all this and saying, well, it's all right.
It's an intentionality, I think, that needs to
Absolutely.
forward with any kind of project like this.
Can I just shout out Commissioner Chris real quick on the train depot piece? Because that was something I should have mentioned. That train depot, I mean, Teddy Roosevelt looked at that train depot. Like that train depot is an incredibly historic, important historic element. It's marked the boundary where Longmont ended prior to 1915. So that is, I mean, as you know, you're familiar. But yeah, I just wanted to shout that out.
Yeah, it's emotional.
It is.
Yeah, that's right.
Great. Well, thanks for entertaining a slightly different type of agenda today. Really appreciate you guys all showing up and participating.
You should be a teacher.
Yeah.
I'm good for now. Thank you. So with that, that concludes the main items on our agenda for today. Thank you, Executive Director Moody, for your presentation on the URA fundamentals. I'll send. Can we send out the presentation as well on depth reviews? Because I don't think we sent it out virtually in advance either, which is fine because I wanted to get you all in the moment. Great. So with that, I just want to note, if you enjoyed today's discussion, great. If you didn't, please let me know and share some feedback so we can plan, because we have 2 more meetings in this next 6-month period where we're intending to do some type of more topical discussion that aren't specific to projects. I believe the current plan for our next meeting, which will be our next scheduled meeting in March, will be 2 main topics, one on housing as it relates to urban renewal, and then the other one on the mixed use innovation and revitalization zone. Did I get the acronym correct? MUIR, which is kind of the evolution of the urban renewal innovation zone proposed by the previous council. So Grant, I believe you'll be driving that in March to introduce kind of where kind of that is at in terms of draft stage at that point and get feedback on that, correct? Yes. So we'll have that, and then we'll have Molly do the housing presentation, I believe. So we'll have, again, 2 meaty topics coming out there, but show up to those ready to ask questions and dig into the details.
So we do not have additional executive sessions scheduled at this point?
I do not believe we currently have them scheduled, but they may.
They could come.
They could come anytime.
Thank you.
Yes. So just wanted to prepare you there. If there are things about format or timing or length that you appreciated from tonight, or things that you'd like to do differently, please do let me know. We're going to be playing around with different structures for the different topics. So any other final comments, Laura, from you on what's on the docket going forward? No? Katie, anything you want to add?
No.
Harold? Any other commissioner? Jen? Okay.
Move to adjourn.
I hear a motion to adjourn from Commissioner Christ. I have a second from Commissioner McCoy. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Hearing done. Thank you very much. You guys have a wonderful night.